I have chosen the best friend's brother as my anchor. That night, just past midnight, I saw his text blinking on my screen, and my heart forgot to be polite. Lucas, the older brother who once loomed like a weathered statue at every family barbecue, now spoke in a small, tremulous voice about loneliness, about a marriage that had frayed into silence, about a weekend trip that would never have happened if my best friend Maya had not invited me along. I was 37. A reporter building a quiet life in a city that hummed with coffee and deadlines, married to a man who loved me in the plain, reliable way that keeps a home standing but rarely makes a heart race. Our home life was neat, the kind of neat that looks perfect on a feed and feels hollow at dusk. And I cherished what I had, even as I trusted Maya more than I trusted the late hours I spent alone with my own thoughts. The invitation had sounded innocent, a chance to escape to a lake cabin, to breathe clean air, to share a weekend of meals and board games and the easy warmth of a circle that knew you so well you could sit in silence and still feel seen. The setup was simple, the arrangement clear, and I told myself I was content with the routine of a safe life. Yet as the car wheels rolled away from the city and the trees blurred into a long green curtain, I found my mind drifting toward Lucas. He was the kind of man who wore his sadness like a smooth coat, the way the divorce papers might have folded his pride but left him with a gentleness I remembered from childhood, when we used to skate on the same rink, his grin catching the light and making me feel braver than I had a right to be. On the first evening, the house smelled faintly of pine and cinnamon. The fire crackled in a throat of orange. And Maya spoke in a voice that tasted of trust and shared secrets. Lucas stood by the kitchen island and poured coffee, as if every turn of the mug could fix a broken day. And in the half-light, I realized how the distance between us had widened over the years into a quiet ache that I had learned to live with, as best as a good wife can. The touch came by accident, a brush of his sleeve as we reached for the same mug. And in that split second, I felt the old pull, the uneasy thrill that lives in the line between danger and desire. It wasn't just hunger. It was the sense that time, which had handed us bows and arrows of responsibility, forgot to hand us a map. I thought of the months of quiet routines, of the way a marriage can falter not from big betrayals, but from the slow erosion of tenderness. And I wondered if the world had prepared Lucas and me to meet at the same time, in the same room, when the doors of our lives stood a little crooked and unsteady. If this confession has you on the edge of your seat, hit like and share because you will not believe what happens next. The inciting incident came the next day when I knocked on his door to borrow a charger and found him there, not with the bravado of a man trying to prove he still had a life to offer, but with a quiet openness I had not expected. He spoke of the divorce like a wound that would scar and fade, not like a story that could be rewritten. He asked about my husband, about a late-night assignment that kept me at the desk too long, about a future that felt less certain than the lake under a summer moon. The air between us grew heavier with every sentence, and when our hands brushed as I returned the charger from his hand, the world narrowed to the space between our breath and the soft ache behind my ribs. It was not just about longing. It was about permission denied for so long, finally asking for a reason to stay alive. The rising action thickened as we tried to pretend. We joked about weather and work. We traded small smiles as if to measure how close we could stand without tipping into something real. But the weekend pressed us into corners, and at night, the wind rattled the cabin windows and the pine needles hissed against the glass like a whispering crowd begging for a confession. We talked in partial truths, and when I admitted that I was tired of the sterile cadence of a marriage that no longer touched me, He admitted that he was tired of pretending he did not want to be with me in the light of day, not just in the hush of a borrowed bed. The moment of truth arrived when, after a rain-slick walk along the fence line, we stood at the edge of the dock and watched the lake glow with the last gold of dusk. He told me he did not want to repeat the missteps of his past, that he believed in second chances the way a child believes in Santa, with the absolute honesty that comes from losing faith in all the easy answers. I admitted that I could not pretend I did not dream of a different map, of a life that felt newly made for us alone, even if the risk was everything. And then his hand found mine, the rough warmth of his palm, the tremor in his fingertips, the faint scent of rain and soap, and something older, more permanent than our fear. I whispered that I was afraid of what people would say, of what Maya would feel, of what a future that included us would demand of the families we cherished. He answered with a kiss that tasted faintly of salt and rain, not the wildness of a reckless night, but the promise of a truth that would not be silenced. We did not rush, but the knowledge settled in me like a seed beneath frost, waiting for a spring that would justify the waiting. In the days that followed, we moved with care, conversations cautious, eyes always searching for a cue to pull back or lean forward. I walked the streets of the city with a new rhythm, hearing my own heartbeat in the noises of buses and coffee grinders, feeling the ache of what I could have had if I chose the risk. And I did choose something, the possibility of a life where I could still be me, not only as a wife, not only as a reporter, but as a woman who could look at two different futures and decide not to pretend they both did not exist. The mid-story truth of this tale came when I finally faced Maya, with a confession that tasted like fear and relief on the tongue at once. She listened with a soft, almost prayerful patience, and when she spoke, her words did not scold me, but asked me to weigh what matters: the bond of friendship, the sanctity of a marriage, and the slow burn of a doorway left half open. If I choose to step through, I would be choosing a second chance, not just with him, but with myself, with the version of me who dared to feel again after a season of quiet. Where does that leave the best friend who has shared every secret since childhood, the one who would not betray? It leaves room for truth, for conversations, for boundaries drawn with care and honesty, for forgiveness that is not cheap but earned, for love that does not pretend to erase the past but honors it while daring a future. The confession hung in the air between us after I spoke, a delicate thread that could either pull us together or snap under pressure. And I felt it shake a little, as if the universe itself waited, listening for a sign. If you are with me so far, if this confession has you on edge and craving more, remember to press like and share, because you will not believe what happens next. The turning point arrived not with a dramatic thunderclap, but with a choice that settled like a warm breath on cold skin. To protect what is good in the life I have built, to honor the history that frames who I am, and to allow this new tenderness to grow only in the light of truth. We chose caution, not denial. We chose to tell Maya in a way that would not bind us to silence, to slow, to ritual, to the kind of honesty that might heal more than it hurts. And in the quiet that followed, I found a second chance that did not demand a surrender of all I had worked for, but asked me to become more myself, more brave, more capable of loving well, more willing to risk losing what I think I cannot live without to gain what my heart knows I cannot, and did not want to live without. The wrap-up lands softly, revealing that the road ahead is not a straight line, but a sea of possibilities, each crest offering a different version of happiness, a chorus of choices that do not erase the past, but illuminate it. I still wake to the same city sounds, coffee grinding, a child laughing downstairs in Maya's home, the world spinning with the ordinary pace of morning rituals. Only now I carry the memory of a weekend that changed me. A memory that refuses to fade because it belongs to the part of me that believes love can arrive when you stop pretending you have all the answers. Those hashtags float through my thoughts like fragile sails. Emotional storytelling, forbidden love, second chances, mature romance, older woman, younger man, heartfelt story, love found me. If you crave more raw emotional confessions, please like, share, and subscribe. Your next chapter awaits. I am learning to believe that the future can hold both gratitude for what I built and the courage to mend what once broke, and that perhaps love does not demand the erasure of the past, but its integration into a richer, braver version of us, a version that can still